There, this is Doug Day. Welcome to our live broadcast. Today, we're talking about the 60% dilemma, how you got lost and how to find your purpose. If you're joining us live, thank you for listening in. And if you're watching the replay, appreciate you coming back and listening to this broadcast. So let's get right into it. This is not a long lesson. I'm only going to be here with you for, no, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes or so. So let's talk about this idea of how people got lost and what the 60% dilemma. If you were here Monday, we did a live broadcast on Monday at 11 a.m. as well. And you can go back and kind of reference what I talked about in that one. We're talking about these 5 essentials that you need. So I'd go back to that. You can see while you're watching right here on the website. If you just scroll down, you can see the broadcast from Monday, and we got more coming your way over these next couple of weeks. So listen, more people are trying to find their purpose or their calling. More than ever, I think people are doing that, trying to find out really a more meaningful sense of life, your life, and living a life that has meaning and purpose, where you feel good each day when you get up and you are purposeful and deliberate and fruitful and helpful in terms of how you're living your life and how you're helping other people. And so I think there's a greater pull on us than ever before, and it's because there's more confusion than ever before. And the pull, the desire, I think, is actually creating even stronger yearning in you. I think the yearning actually increases in you the more confused that you get. So the further you get away from your authentic self and who you really are, and doing really what you want to be doing or what you're supposed to be doing, I think the farther you get from that, as life and time goes on, I think the yearning gets stronger. Now, some people do succumb. They do succumb to the comfort zone. They do succumb to kind of compromising themselves. And a lot of people do succumb to just kind of living with the problems that come from not actually living life your way and being yourself. So today I'm going to talk about how you lost your way and how you can find more meaning and purpose. And like I mentioned on Monday, I talked about the essentials to a good life, and we talked about the idea of controlling and directing your mind. You have absolute control over your mind. You can direct your thinking, but just because you have that ability to control it, it doesn't mean that you're exercising that control. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were explaining to me all the problems that they have, and they were had a lot of judgments and criticisms about them. They said, I'm a procrastinator. I can't focus, and I'm all over the place, and I'm this and I'm not, and da, da, da. It was all this laundry list of criticisms and judgments and assessments of how they were feeling and how they were acting. And they ended it with, they said, that's just how my mind works. I said, that's not how your mind works. I said, that's how you're using your mind, but that's definitely not how your mind works. And your mind does operate a certain way. It is a machine. You're the operator of the machine, and you have the ability to control and direct your thinking. But like I said, we're not always exercising that control. And so, what we've got to really understand is how to think properly, because you weren't taught to think properly. If you're struggling in any area of your life, if you're struggling, in your career, if you're struggling in your relationships, if you're struggling, with health problems or anything like that, internal emotional struggles, if you're struggling, it means that it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means you're doing something wrong, and highly likely that you are not using your mind properly. And so we really have to learn how to do that. But first off, let me start by explaining how you got lost, and then I'll explain how to satisfy the yearning you feel for wanting more meaning and purpose in your life. So here's how you got lost, and I'm going to do this kind of in reverse. It started at conception, and it manifested and began at birth. But I'm going to start from the end kind of where you are right now, and we'll kind of work our way back to the beginning. So one thing is, I think some people are actually too smart for their own good. And what I mean by that is that they keep pursuing and assimilating information, and trying to they pursue it, they assimilate it, they take it in, and they try to understand it. And these days, there's so much information coming at you, and so especially if you're not performing well, if you're not feeling good about your life or how you're doing, what you tend to do is you tend to seek on the outside information and answers from other sources to try to figure out what your problem is and solve your problem. And we're so bombarded. I mean, with our phones, with media, like media is everywhere. Televisions are everywhere, pretty much everywhere you go. I'm in New York City right now. I mean, if I just walk out of my building and I turn left and then turn right onto Broadway and look down Broadway towards Times Square, there's media, there's screens everywhere. And so we're bombarded by information, and it's actually hard to disseminate all the information. So if you're pursuing all this information to try to figure out how to better your life, or to make yourself feel better about yourself, or solve some of the problems in your life, you're actually causing more confusion. So this idea of being too smart for your own good, pursuing the information, dissecting the information, assimilating the information, trying to understand the information, all in an effort to try to figure out what the hell's wrong with you and why are you doing things wrong that you don't want to be doing. Now, here's what you got to get straight about your mind, right? So there's two basic parts to your mind, what's called your conscious, logical, rational mind. So that's where you can think. You take in the information, you listen, you watch, you take this information in. That runs through your conscious mind, and you have the ability, as that information comes into you, you can assimilate it, disseminate it, question it, accept it, or reject it. But here's the thing: the smart people in media, the people that are really good on social media that get your attention to, hook you into watching all these reels and videos, or maybe you get hooked on to YouTube, or maybe you're following all these influencers because they got, a million followers, so they must know what they're talking about. And so what happens is they're very good at hooking your attention. Okay. And so the conscious part of your mind is where you control the information that's coming into your mind. Okay. But what they do is they get your attention. And what they're able to do is able to get you to set aside your rational, logical mind, and the information goes right into your subconscious. Advertisers discovered that when television came along. In fact, they made it illegal the way advertisers were advertising, because they were dropping ideas into your subconscious mind. When you're looking at the screen like this, and you're watching a movie or TV, or you're on your phone and a commercial comes on or something pops up on your phone, you're not using your rational, logical mind. You're feeding your unconscious mind with information, and so it just goes right in there, and you get hooked, and you don't use accurate thinking. So that's one of our biggest problems. One of the reasons people are struggling and striving and straining to do better is because they're bombarded with information. And if you have or experiencing what I call the 60% dilemma, the 60% dilemma is that 60% of people have gone through what we call adverse childhood experiences. They're called ACEs. 60% of adults have gone through these adverse experiences, which include abuse, emotional, physical, and sexual abuse, emotional and physical neglect, and then witnessing very difficult things inside the home, witnessing violence, witnessing depression, divorce, all this stuff. I witnessed a lot of terrible things in my home when I was a child. And so this 60% of people have gone through that. It really screws you up, and your perception of yourself and your self-image. And most people, 60%, grow up with low self-esteem, a lot of insecurities, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of doubt, a lot of second guessing. They're just really not feeling sure of themselves. They don't really have a solid sense of who they are. And so their identity, I call them mistaken identity, my book, Mistaken Identity. 60% of people and more are suffering from the symptoms of this 60% dilemma. So if you have that in you, along with this bombardment of all this information, trying to figure out what the hell is wrong with you or trying to fix your problems, no wonder you're lost. No wonder you're confused, and no wonder you feel off track. And so, if I can help you in any way on this little message, one thing I want to tell you is I want you to adopt what's called the fifth agreement. So there's a little book that saved my life, literally. It's called The Four Agreements. The author's name is Don Miguel Ruiz. He wrote a series of books. And later on, after the popularity of the Four Agreements and his subsequent follow-up books, he wrote the fifth agreement. And the fifth agreement was be skeptical, question everything. What we do is we just take in information. We don't use our rational, logical mind to filter it out and disseminate it and question it. It just goes right into our mind, and it impacts us. We believe stuff. These days with social media, there's such a strong polarization to, I mean, I can put an idea on social media, and if I get enough people to watch it, I can create a polarization and a narrative of misinformation, and people think it's actually true. So if you're gonna be on the phone, if you're gonna be watching the television, if you're gonna be listening to other people, just like you're listening with me, don't just accept what I say, but don't reject what I say, and definitely don't neglect what I say. So use that fifth agreement. Be skeptical. Question everything, not from a place of lack of trust, not from a place of doubt and fear, but just use your rational, logical mind to disseminate this information. Okay. Now, another problem we have that got you lost is there's a real strong compulsion for conformity, and that causes you to second guess yourself. So when you were little, you were expected to conform, to fit in, to follow the rules, the values, the standards, the beliefs, religious beliefs, cultural beliefs, family beliefs. They were all drilled into you, and you were expected to conform. And if you didn't conform, you were made to feel bad. You might have got teased, criticized, punished. You might have got mistreated, like I was mistreated, and it really caused you to second guess yourself. Okay, because you by conforming and fitting in, if you were compromising yourself or you were caving or you put on a mask just to please other people, it would have created this mistaken identity in you, and you wouldn't be operating as your true, authentic self. I think there's very few people, very few children that grow up in a family, in an environment where they can actually truly be their authentic self. I think the reason why 5% of the people in our world basically earn 95% of all the money, those 5%, those winners, they just make it look easy because I think luckily for them, or maybe their parents were aware enough for them to help them figure out who they truly are, let them become that person, let them find their own way without making decisions for them and all this judgment and kind of controlling and navigating the way the kid should have started out their life. So oftentimes one of the other reasons you get lost and you can't find your purpose or your calling is you don't believe in yourself, and you don't know who to believe or who to listen to. So big issue. So where did this all start? How do you get off track? Why don't you believe in yourself more? Well, first of all, you understand you have absolutely no idea how your past is holding you back, causing confusion and disrupting your future. If you don't get a grip on why you doubt yourself, you'll keep searching in vain for that winning feeling, and you're never going to find it. So what we got to do is we got to clear up this mistaken identity. That's what's actually caused you to get lost. Now, I believe everybody suffers from mistaken identity. Since this book came out, it came out last April. It took me about 10 years to write the book. Not literally, it took me about 3 months to actually write the book. But over 10 years, I was talking to thousands of people, and they were coming to me because, I came from a very brutal, violent, um, adverse childhood experiences, and I was able not only survive, but also to thrive and not remain a victim of any kind. And I was very public with that story. People kept coming, go, how did you do it? Because they were struggling. A lot of the people in the 60% found me and were asking, how did you do it? And I was trying to explain how I did it. And as I was talking to people, and they were telling me their story and how they felt about themselves and the mistakes they were making and how they were feeling about themselves and judging themselves and treating themselves and others, I go, I think you're mistaken. I don't see the person you're describing. I see somebody different because I have the ability to see past your mistaken identity because I really understand what it is, how you got it, what is yours. I can see past it. Then I can introduce you to your authentic self because you do get glimmers of it. You do, feel it sometimes. You don't always believe it, but you definitely get the feeling of it. But the mistaken identity, your ego side, your false self is way, way more dominant. So I think everybody suffers from some form of mistaken identity. So what is it and how did you get it? Well, I talked about it basically when you grew up. You're expected to conform, to fit in, follow all these rules, values, and beliefs, or maybe you were really mistreated and you have a false sense of self. So if you have any insecurities, doubts, if you don't feel good about yourself, if you have low self-esteem or a poor attitude towards yourself and towards others, if you feel like a victim because you were victimized, well, then you have a mistaken identity. Um, and it's controlling you because the way your mind operates, your mind directs your brain and nervous system. Okay. And your mind is guided by your self image. It's your self image that is in control, and you can't outperform your self image. You'll never do better than how you see yourself. And so, because the self image is in control, but you try to change things with your logical mind, but it's your unconscious mind that's running the show. So you go, I got to stop drinking. I got to quit smoking. I got to eat better. I got to go to the gym. I got to stop lying. I got to tell the truth. Whatever it is you keep shooting on yourself, you keep telling yourself that's your logical, rational mind, looking at your situation, your environment, comparing yourself to others, watching shit on social media and thinking, I got to do something different. But your logical mind does not run the show. Your unconscious mind runs the show, and it's directed by your mistaken identity and all those rules, values, and beliefs, and all that junk that you took in that caused you to cave and to conform. Now, if that's what's running the show, how do you find your way and meet your authentic self so you can follow your purpose and follow your calling? So let's talk about the yearning you feel and the pull to find your purpose and your calling. So the pull that you have, it's quite natural. Okay. It's quite natural to have that pull and yearning for something better. Okay. But because you're confused, it causes conflicts and it actually makes you feel actually quite unnatural and you feel very uncomfortable. Okay. And that shows up in different ways: anxiety, depression, second guessing, paranoid, constantly trying to figure out what's going to happen in the future. And so, because you have this mixed message, your authentic self got introduced to your false self, your mistaken identity, that became the dominant person in your mind and in your life. So it's natural to want more, to strive for more, but because you have this mistaken identity, you have this unnatural feeling that's causing you conflict, and it shows up in your life. Now, here's the good news: if you have a desire to do something, okay, you are that person and you've been gifted with the talents and abilities. Now, you might be afraid to make the moves, you might be indecisive, you might procrastinate, you might be afraid to, to pursue the things that are on your heart, that yearning. But that doesn't mean that you're not capable. If you desire something, if you have a yearning, if you have a pull, you are that person. Okay. You were created in God's image. God does not put out faulty product. All right. And God placed a desire on your heart. You are here for a purpose and for a calling. So that's pulling on you. And if you have any pull, if you've experienced it, if you've thought about it, if you got glimmers of it or ideas of it, I want to reassure you, if you have that feeling, you are that person and you were gifted with the gifts and talents and abilities to pull it out. Otherwise, you wouldn't have that yearning. Okay. So we got to connect the dots with that. All right. Um, so, people always say, if you feel lost, you're trying to find your purpose, it lies in becoming your authentic self. Well, how the hell do you become your authentic self? Nobody explains how. They go, you just must become your authentic self. You must live your authentic life. Well, nobody explains how. Now, I was trying to find the answer to that. I didn't know. Nobody could answer or tell me how to do it. And then I finally found the answers on how to do it. I figured it out, I did it, and then I put it together in my book in the form of instruction manual. Okay. So let's talk about this. number one, stop trying to find your calling or your purpose. If you keep trying to find it, okay, you're not going to find it. You're only going to create more stress, because if you're trying to find it and searching through a mistaken identity, the eyes of your mistaken identity, your windows on the world, your perception of you and the world, if you're pursuing your calling and your purpose from that viewpoint, you're going to be lost. You're going to just you'll spend your whole life trying to find that, and it's just going to be more difficult as time goes on. The fundamental problem we have in the world is people are trying too hard to be something that they're not. Okay, our world perpetuates this idea to try, you can be anything, you can do anything, you can have anything. That's not true. And because you want to fit in and you want to conform, you don't want to upset the apple cart, you want to be loved, validated, you want adulation, approval, all these things that you strive for, desire for, because you didn't get them when you were little. Okay, you do things that are unauthentic. You're not acting like your true self. You can't be yourself because you're worried about the implications, and what might result if you can't be yourself. So if you're looking to satisfy that yearning that you do want, to do what you want, live life the way you want to live, and be happy, you have to stop pretending and faking and start being yourself. All the answers you seek will come from your authentic self. So how do you do that? Well, it's very, very simple. It's very, very hard for most people when it's actually quite simple to do. If your mind directs your brain and nervous system, and your self-image is the captain of the ship, then you got to create a winning image. You have to create the right image to get you where you want to go, to satisfy that yearning and pursue your purpose and your calling and do things the way you want to do. Now, in order to do that, you have to do two things. Okay. There's two things you need to do. You can't just make up a winning self-image. It doesn't work that way, right? The only way you can is through two steps. One is you have to see the image you hold of yourself is not entirely true. It's mistaken. And the image you're trying to create must be based on truth. So basically, what we got to do is we have to figure out who we are and who we're not. We have to understand, what is this mistaken identity? How did I get it? And what is yours? And then you get rid of that mistaken identity. You clear it up. And by getting rid of it and clearing up all this mental junk, and it's not hard, it doesn't take very long, it's actually quite simple. When you do that, you meet your true self and your authentic self, and then you're more clear, and then you're more confident. Okay. And then there's a couple of things that you have to do. So number one, get the facts on your past. Now, I don't think you should dwell in the past. I don't think you don't have to dredge up all your past, but you should gather some facts from your past as to what got you off track. You do need to learn how your mind works. It's very, very simple, and how your self-image actually directs your mind and you. Get rid of your mistaken identity, and then decide on what makes you happy and pursue that from your authentic self. And then distance yourself from the opinion of others, because that's a real problem for most people. And then just start making moves, the road less traveled, in your own direction. And that action will create a reaction, and it will confirm that you're on the right track. Listen, I wrote my book, and I created courses that instruct you and guide you. And over 45 days, you can actually meet your authentic self and find your purpose and calling. So one of the reasons I'm doing these little lessons to you, you're on my email list. I only invited people to my email list to these calls. I'm trying to get you to see what you actually have to do in order to live the life that you want and feel good about the life that you live. And what it comes down to is what we're talking about today. I'm going to be back here on Friday, and I got a few more lessons for you next week. I'm going to explain to you over and over and over again what's really running this show and what you really have to do in order to get where you want to go. And so I'm kicking off a program Monday, June 17th. It's called 45 Days to an Upgraded Life. I spend 45 days with you. I'm with you every day, 5 days a week for 6 weeks, using my book as a prescription and the owner's manual and all of this. And I'll take you through live every day. It's not a course. It's not a program, anything like that. This is literally a virtual retreat that causes a major, major transformation. So if I'm resonating with you at all, just click that little button and schedule a little call with my team, and then I'll have a chat with you. It's not going to turn into a sales call, right? But it's going to turn into a conversation about you and your mistaken identity and finding your true calling and your purpose. So if this lesson makes any sense to you, just let's have a chat. Um, Remember, you have no idea how your past is controlling your future. If you don't find yourself, all right, if you don't get rid of your mistaken identity, you'll never find your purpose or your calling. Self-help and therapy don't work. You only get more confused. Confidence and clarity comes when you clear your name and clear up the confusion of who you are and what you're here to do. I think most people are stuck in an emotional prison and they got arrested and they're in jail. It's a case of mistaken identity, and we got to clear your name and free yourself from this prison so you can live life the way you want to live it. Listen, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And that's what we're going to do. So over this 45-day virtual retreat, we'll help you transform so you can do what you want, live life the way you want, and you can be happy. So again, just schedule a chat with me and my team. It's not going to turn into a sales call. It's really a conversation to see if this is right for you, if you're ready to finally put this stuff behind you and really start living life the way you want. If you don't let go of the past, you won't, not much will change, and you definitely won't stop hiding and start living. So I want to thank you for coming on. Share this with somebody else if this is a good lesson or a good message. Just grab the link in the browser, copy and paste it, share it with somebody. And again, if you want to have a chat, book that link. Let's have a conversation. And I'd love to show you how your mistaken identity is sending you in the wrong direction. I'll help you find your purpose and calling. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy your day.